o'clock time, 7:02?
I think I saw a car pull along. Is that maybe Sarah coming in?
I saw a car coming on, I don't know whose car it is.
I didn't know either.
Is it Sarah?
Betsy, do you have any take on anybody else coming?
I assume Sarah's going to be here. In fact, that may be her car.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it getting dark? Do you think it's going to rain?
Gonna rain?
Yeah.
It did rain a little bit.
Did?
I went out to my car at 6 and there were very slight raindrops all
somewhere?
over.
It was getting darker earlier. I didn't know if that was darkness or rain. It was supposed to rain sometime tonight.
Oh, voting members, we have Captain Dougherty, I gotta say it right.
Doherty.
Dougherty.
Our son was just...
Like a K in there?
There it
It's-
is.
No, Doherty. It's an Irish pronunciation, and it's from the Philadelphia area. Our grandson was just down playing golf in New Jersey, and they pronounced his name correctly. He was so excited.
Chris Mackley, Scott Patrick, and Betsy Harding will be participating tonight as a full-time member and I was an alternate.
Thank you. I'll be right over and just realize I need 2 more copies.
Why don't we just recruit Hank when we need another one?
There you go.
He's all for that.
Of course, let's not let him vote or say anything.
This is a new machine. I can't figure it out. But here's Sarah.
I saw her about 2 weeks ago. I told her I wasn't going to be here.
And Sarah Kim.
Okay.
Minutes, review of minutes. Any comments? Any other errors?
They look fine by me.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Minutes have been accepted. Public comment?
These people are very quiet.
The public rests. Okay, so that brings us to consideration of applicant consultants for possible MTAG. And Scott or Betsy, would you like to?
Scott, do you want to kick off?
That's true. So we had 5 applications to the RFP committee that we put out. We also worked with a gentleman named Peter Rowath, something like that. He worked at a company based in Ohio. He's retired, so he continues to run the company. They've been involved in a lot of projects regarding affordable housing, although more so for larger municipalities and just a somewhat different kind of environment and situations. But yeah, he was willing to give us some pro bono assistance in terms of looking at our RFP, did a couple of studies did some research and collected some numbers. A lot of it came from census data and put together some metrics from that. Ultimately, we really stuck more to what we started out with for an RFP. I think some of the suggestions had merit, but he presented us with a whole lot of material, and without it, I don't think Betsy and I felt like we really had the time to properly go through it, let alone involve the board before we need to get something out there and get applications in. But he may still be a resource as we move forward. He keeps saying that he's retired, he's going to help when he can in the background, and then a day later we get reamed out.
And he still lives in Ohio, he doesn't live
No,
here?
no, he lives in Maine now.
In Maine now, okay.
He comes to this area quite a bit to hike and that sort of thing. He was willing to make a couple visits if we wanted to listen to him as a board. So, in any case, we then put out the RFP, we got 5 applications, and we ultimately interviewed 3 of the applicants. They ranged in quote value from a little under 6 or under 7,000
Yes.
up to about 25,000. 25,000.
That's a good range.
And, you know, I think in talking to, there were 2, a woman named Ivy Van, who both Betsy and I felt really didn't have the experience either in terms of specifically, I mean, she'd done some work, but just didn't seem to have much depth of experience either in terms of affordable or available housing, but also in terms of organizing, campaigns to both promote the education of the town as well as to promote whatever initiatives we decide on. So we did not interview her. North Country Council also applied, and I think we both felt that, again, they weren't, or that they're not really focused on this particular issue. I mean, they have such a broad base of focus and expertise, but not as much for this particular issue as some of the other applicants that jive with how you felt, Betsy.
Yeah, and for example, North Country Council pretty much said that we'll make zoning changes. And there may be some zoning changes we could make, but there aren't many that we can make, a little bit of difference here and there. So really a large part of it is getting outside the box. I mean, we're all sort of in the box in terms of our limited knowledge about what other towns have done and succeeded at. There may not be ways that we can really make a difference, but there may be. And one of the guys that we talked with is over in Plymouth, and he used to work for the Office of State Planning. So he has a good understanding of what the North Country is like and what kind of issues are of real concern to us here. And his price was right in the middle of the whole range, and it really seemed to us as if he would deliver what we need, much more than anyone else. I've got a very brief synopsis here. I was trying to make one more copy because I only brought 4.
This is a material you should.
And so any of the applications, full applications you want to see, we can get to you. And as Betsy was saying, this Steve Whitman seems to sort of be in sync with both who we are and what we're trying to do. And particularly, in regards to those campaigns to, both educate the public, but also bring in ideas and comments from the public.
Yeah.
The 2 others that we interviewed really didn't seem to have that as much a part of what they were offering as we thought there needed to be.
Yeah, some of the people who applied were assuming that, they put up a booth or something or other near the post office and people would stop by and come to them about it. And Scott and I really feel that in order for anything to really work, we've got to get a large group of people together, maybe even the way we did the community profile in 2002 up at Black Mountain. Getting a lot of people exchanging ideas and getting anger out, getting positive thoughts out, and getting the whole thing hashed through to figure out what do we really want. And as some of the applicants were really assuming that we just wanted housing that would be workforce housing, and we really need housing diversity options, something for seniors, something for young entrepreneurs, something, the whole range.
Is this really a thing for the planning board to discuss, or is this something really the town needs to,
It's the town.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's fine, I just was
We would
asking.
make a proposal to the town?
Well, Scott and I were at the Selectmen's office meeting today, and our expectation is that either it would be signed by Bill and it would be part of the planning board budget, or it would be signed by the selectmen and it would be something that the town would vote yay or nay at the time of the town warrant. Either way, the town's going to vote on it, whether it's just part of the planning board budget or something else. But the upshot from the selectmen's meeting is that we're going to get a batch of questions over to Julie Atwell that she will then run by Peter Malia. And Bob Thompson, who was thinking it's a great idea, said that they will hope to have a decision on, some ideas on how it would go forward within a week, which is great because we've got a time frame.
And, I think it somewhat depends on what types of actions are, seem like that are proposed and seem like might be fruitful. If there are zoning changes, then that would be a planning board, the planning board would be directly involved. If it's, redistricting, that would be a planning board issue. If it was, changing, how we zone, commercial enterprises, that becomes part of it. I mean, there are various things that would be planning board issues, but there are various things that, a municipal trust or a private trust that, would be probably completely outside of the planning board. That is more getting all of that discussion going so that we can then, sort of distill out of it what we want and what's possible.
Just a quick question. Dr. Wasco and Gail Doctor, did they have any, they mentioned that they were interested. Did they have any input into this?
Minimally. Jim Waskow has been away almost the entire month. He's coming back on the 19th, so no, he's had none. Gail Doctor started being interested, and then her husband considered putting in an application, so we took her off the email information.
Gotcha.
Didn't want to give him any inside information. He later decided he wasn't going to submit an application.
Okay. Is his background in that?
He's an architect,
Oh, okay.
and I've heard him, leading public sessions. He's quite good he's a good listener. But he's not submitting an application, which is great. Okay, so the next piece of paper on this, same thing, is what our application would be. Now, granted, we will be getting this to Steve Whitman, if that's what you guys are willing to go with. And I expect he will look through this application and say, you really ought to change this wording or make that emphasized or whatever. But this gives you an idea of what we think the application might end up looking like. We've got to submit it before the end of the month, and I leave for Iceland on the 24th.
Good for
So,
you.
And one
Vacation.
thing that's a little different.
I've been wanting to go there. Let me know how it is, will you?
One thing that's a little different than what we were discussing at the last meeting, I think the last meeting we had thought the secondary grant would cover all of the matching funds that the
Right.
primary grant requires. And that turns out not to be completely the case. And so whereas, I don't have the math in, maybe right here, but whereas we were hoping to get the full 25% match requirement through the secondary grant, it sounds like we'll get half, somewhere around half of that, and then the town in one fashion or another will need the other half. And Betsy suggested earlier that that might be possible within our planning board budget. Or we could also ask for it directly from the town, warrant article, or and then the other issue is and this is something that we're asking Peter Malia, is if we, say the planning board is willing to, include it as part of our own budget, does the town still need to vote to accept the grant? Or does that not need to come to a town vote? But
Or just be the selectmen accepting it.
right, but there is some thought that because the town, in principle at least, would need to pay invoices and then be reimbursed through the grant, although depending on the payment terms, that may not actually be the case. But if that were the case, then maybe it would need to come to a town vote. So we're going to find out from Peter Malloy what he thinks about that particular issue. But even if it does have to come to a town vote, we can submit the application, get approval for the secondary grant, and have all of that be contingent on
The vote.
it passing through a vote.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, then no.
Just a couple of quick questions on Mr. Whitman. Did he have a resume? Do we know who he's worked with? Have we
Yeah.
interviewed?
We had a terrific response from two towns that have worked with him, the town of Alton and Newbury. Let's see, Altman, okay, he was town planner in Altman for a while, and then in Newbury, he was updating their master plan. So the guy from Alton who, in fact, both towns responded were very positive about his work with them. He submitted his resume and the resume of the person that was working with him, a woman named Liz, and he also submitted a whole scope of work in 6 different tasks that he would recommend that we do. But in addition, one of the things Scott and I really liked about him, I think, was that he was really wanting to tailor what he would do by what the town wanted. So he gave a general idea of what he'd recommend, but he really said once we start the work, we're going to adapt what we need to do according to what the town really needs. So he was an exciting guy to talk with about it. I really couldn't have been more enthusiastic about him. And the fact that he was in the Office of State Planning for a long time and really sort of knows the North Country to one extent or another. I know we're all different towns, but he's had a lot of experience with North Country towns.
The little note up here, Scott Stowe, Vermont.
He just, when we talked to him, he mentioned that Stowe has went through this whole process, but quite a while ago, and probably a little bit more proactively than you're doing. But Stowe State is almost the exact same problem. They have more land to work with because they don't have national forests.
Did they adopt it, the Stowe? What they recommended?
They have a very they have a housing plan. I haven't looked at the details of their
I
plan.
have. They have a very interesting total plan, which I kind of took a look at that when we were doing the planning process for the 10-year renewal of our plan for other places that may be similar to us. And what I found was their scope was much greater than ours. It's a much larger community, and their overall municipal funding is much larger than ours. But they have some of the same challenges, I think, that you're describing, that they get a lot of their workforce coming in during seasonal time, and it's a very Tony place.
They actually probably are even more challenged because at least we have the rest of the valley workforce from, where Stowe really doesn't.
They don't have.
I thought their low-income housing started at 1.2 million.
Yeah, exactly. something like that. And then that was the poverty zone for them.
In addition, a lot of, I think Vermont's legislature has opened up many more possibilities for how one could zone. And one of the things they require, for example, that I know would never fly in Jackson is any towns up high, any housing up high. You can't have glass that would catch the sun and reflect it. You've got to have sort of opaque, almost.
A lot of towns do that.
Yeah, and
Not just in mountains and lake regions areas too. They do the same thing.
yeah, and to get that kind of thing through in Jackson, it's probably pointless because much of in our upper register homes, many of them already have the glass that's going to be reflective, so it wouldn't make a lot of difference to have 12 new homes with glass that won't reflect. But anyway, I think it's a pretty different environment that they're working with than what we're working with.
There also aren't many ridge lines in Jackson that are developable. I mean,
Right?
yeah.
Really? Where were you thinking of getting this land for this?
Getting land?
We have no idea.
That's the big question. That's really the major question.
No, it really isn't.
Well, I thought it was.
What I meant was, don't you think we know that there isn't any land?
Well, that's what I mean.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, there really isn't any land.
There's land that can be developed.
No, there's not. No, there's not.
We're not
Where?
talking about a lot.
Where?
We have applications every year.
Where?
There's a large chunk of privately held property on, as you go up Route 16, let's say to the west of Black Mountain, there's a very large parcel of property up there. Now, I don't know how,
You mean up on Route 16 here?
up on Route 16.
Yeah.
Where Charlie Russo used to own?
Where?
Where Charlie Russo owned? There's a
I don't know who owns it, I just know that.
Well, the people that own it now come from Rhode Island.
You know, we're getting in the weeds. It's not for us to figure out what parcels.
Why
are-
isn't it our responsibility to do that? Because to me, it's a waste of time what we're doing, to tell you the truth. If we don't have a land area where we can do this, then why are we bothering to even think
We
about
do
doing
have-
it?
We do
Because
have,
there are properties all around town if we purchase for it.
yeah.
Who's going to purchase it?
Well, we don't
Trust.
know.
A developer?
Well, first of all, developers aren't going to touch that right now, because you talk to any developer, they're straight out with work.
Right.
So you're talking about a long time process, okay?
Well, I think that's what we're talking about anyway. This is not something that's gonna be solved.
And if
by
you're
the end of
talking,
the
and if
year.
you're talking about land, you have to put in a septic system and a well system in there. And once you do that,
Kathleen.
it's not affordable anymore.
We're not the ones who are going to be deciding. This is going to be a topic for the town to discuss. There are lots of land parcels.
There are not. Okay, everybody's talking about Dana Place up there, okay? They come up with the money every year to pay their taxes. They're not about to turn that over to the town. Not only
That's
that,
not necessarily the only area. There are plenty of other areas that could be developable. I
Okay,
shouldn't say
develop
plenty.
on, okay, develop on, you're talking about for senior citizens. They're not going to be wanting to ride up to the top of Tyrol, a senior citizen, okay?
I do it.
Well, I know
You.
that. But what I mean is, for a one-bedroom floor, for senior citizens to be in a house, okay? If they don't already have it where they live right now. And then you're talking about young people coming into town. I'm talking about looking at instead of looking in here in Jackson to put affordable housing in, okay? Or why don't we consider the whole Mount Washington Valley?
Because it
Because-
is happening throughout the whole Mount
Yeah,
Washington.
that's,
But we can only put maybe 1 or 2 houses in here, 3 houses at the most for affordable housing, when you can put 50 or 60 houses in some place like Conway where the level's flat, they have septic systems already in place.
Kathleen, we have no control over what happens in Conway or Bartlett or anything like that, but we can open up doors to possibilities.
But
We can
where,
get the-
where are you talking about that? See, that's what I want to know.
it is,
There's
again,
nowhere at this point. We're trying to figure out what kind of possibilities, and then that will determine where it might be. But we
But
don't
we live
know-
here in Jackson. Don't we think we should know where there's the possibility of doing it?
We don't know how to do it at the moment.
But if there isn't anything available,
That's your,
I don't understand. I really truly do not. I would really like to understand. I brought this up at the last meeting. Tell me where you're thinking about this affordable land. Where?
Affordable is a difficult word. We can't guarantee
Well, I
that it's going
understand
to be
that. We're
affordable.
going to ask B to give up some of her property, or your dad to give up some property. I mean, I don't know of any big
Maybe.
properties in town. And who's stopping? The planning board is not stopping that from taking place. We have cluster zoning.
so you want to just throw up your hands and let the town divest itself of its community?
I do not want to do that.
Then why aren't we taking advantage of some free
Nothing's free.
professional help?
Because they don't know about our town.
there's also,
So we're going to wait for a professional to move into town before
No,
we
I don't,
actually-
no. You mean to tell me that we can't come up with our own solutions? Where's the land going to be? Where's it going to be affordable?
Propose some solutions then.
there is land that could, somebody might give up for tax purposes and stuff like that. Yeah.
Have you
Get with
seen?
the real program.
I'm sorry?
Get with the real program.
Well, the difficulty is,
That's happened in town for.
The difficulty
And we're not stopping anybody from doing
For
that.
conservation reasons.
Yes,
and-
yes, I know that.
A tax break, big deal.
But I understand
we have
that.
limited vision as a group. We don't really know what some of the options are. There are other people out there who know a lot more than we do about this worked in that town, that worked in this town. You know, there are things that I would expect are going to be, we'll learn more about what the possibilities are, we'll present them, and in addition, we'll make a whole lot more people savvy about what some of the concerns are, what some of the problems are, why we're not getting some workforce
I have
housing
no
or
problem with
affordable
that.
housing or seniors housing.
I understand all that, and I agree with you on that. We need to have all that here in town. We need to have affordable housing. We need to have young people. We need to deal with old people. All across the country, they're going through this. At least for
Yep.
the next 10 years, they're going to have to deal with it until we're all dead.
So you and I may think that it's not likely to happen, but there are other people
I didn't say
there
that it
who-
was not likely to happen, Betsy. I just want to know where the land is that you're talking about this to take place.
The difficulty
And
is,
somebody coming into town isn't going to say, well, what about that property? Well, we can't deal with that property because it's not our property. You know, it's not like the town has money that we just can't go to somebody like, oh, well, Betsy, okay, you have 5 acres at your house. Do you want to subdivide your property to put that housing in there?
Kathleen, we can't spot zone. Planning boards don't spot zone.
I don't-
So you have
yes.
to consider something town-wide or district-wide. You can certainly have areas where things are different, you know, whether the frontage would be different here than it is over there, things like that.
Are you talking about the village area right here? Or are you
Just as Jerry had said, there are opportunities for community septic, community well. There are lots of things like that that could be done in Jackson, and we need somebody to come in and help us get our eyes open, get our ears open to what some of the possibilities are.
I know that, and he's also gone to Habitat for Humanity and asked them, and they said that they could do it if it's in a, you know, they have to have a septic system put in, they have to have a well put in before it's even affordable for them to come in here and do that.
Right.
And
And that could be great if Habitat is able to work with things like that.
but they have to have the land.
And there are
There
ways to
are
get the
some-
land
How?
through a trust.
I don't understand what you mean by a trust.
A trust is a financial entity that brings in money either through grants or donations or
To buy somebody's property?
to buy somebody's property. In the same, in sort of the same way that Habitat for Humanity then builds the house, but they're bringing in sweat equity as opposed to financial equity to do that.
B, when I was talking about tax breaks, I'm not talking about.
No, I realize that, but conservation, you put your land in, you do
No,
it.
I'm not talking about tax breaks for the town of Jackson.
No,
I'm talking about more significant tax breaks, you know, estate taxes, income type of things that people could, maybe instead of putting it into conservation, they could do it for something else. And I don't think they've been approached for that. But I think it's reasonable to try to get people to do that, and you, quite frankly, get better tax breaks for doing some of these things than you would do just for going to conservation. That just, you know, lowers your property tax.
now, is this guy you're gonna hire, is this gonna be something like we had Hugger down there, Black? That's who you were there.
You mean the community profile thing?
Yeah, that Hugger Town.
What was that?
Hugger Town,
I don't understand. What's
that's what it was. Everybody get up there and,
Oh, hug. Is that what?
Hugger Town.
Well, I'd never heard it called that, but it'll be a community meeting. I would guess that maybe even 2 of them for people who.
We had that done from UNH and all those people come up, if you
Right.
remember.
Well, and so think of the numbers of changes that have happened since then. Many people feel they're pretty good. We've got a new library, we've got a new gym for the kids, a new meeting space for the town meetings. There've been a whole lot of changes. So hug of whatever that you think, I guess it worked. You know, we've got a lot of things that are improved now about the town, in my view, and
But we already had the money, we already had the land, and these are for the community itself that everybody can enjoy, whether it's the library or the Tricky Center or enlarging the school down there.
Right.
But that was already land that we paid $1 million for right here.
Yeah.
And
But we don't know what some of the possibilities are for other things. That'll be something that we explore as a whole town to figure out what do we really want, what matters here. And maybe some people listening to that would say, wow, I've got 6 acres that I could get some workforce housing on or some seniors housing on or whatever. Laugh all you want. It might happen. We don't
And
know.
there are zoning changes that we could make that would allow that to happen.
But we already have like cluster homes to begin with.
Changing our frontage would allow people to subdivide such that they could then create an affordable housing property.
You mean instead of a 200-foot frontage, we go down a 100-foot frontage or something like that?
Sure.
It's possible.
And how about the height restriction? What are we, 30 feet?
35 feet.
They
That's-
will say that that's because of the fire engine ladders.
the ladders don't go
but
higher than that.
Those may change, maybe we won't need to restrict things that way, I don't know. The difficulty is, nobody's going to want to have a 30 or 40 unit complex going in.
It'll look horrible.
Right.
Yeah, so nobody wants that. But think what a difference it would be if we had 4 new homes 1 year and 2 years later another 4 or 5 new homes. We're such a tiny town that putting in a few little homes here and there make a difference. Can we get some tiny houses in? Maybe. How many tiny houses, could fit on? Who knows? But we need at least I need my eyes opened to new ideas, to what's worked in other places.
Again, that small development up on Carter Notch Road, just beyond Moody.
Yeah, that's Ann Peters' place.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and
That
we
is-
changed them
and
for the
that-
cluster, and that's a great place.
Right, but it's not obnoxious either. It's very, very attractive. It's.
Well, she had the money to donate the land, and that's what she
Yeah,
wanted
well,
there, which is great.
I think there's people that may be in that situation, if they understand the need, they simply might do it.
And in her case, she's renting those out. It's not a donation. I don't think that she.
No, it's not, and she still owns the land.
I don't
The
think
house,
she's-
it's just a rental.
I'm guessing she's not profiting much on it, but it probably wouldn't take a whole lot.
She said she gets about 5% a year, which is more than I get at Citizens Bank.
Yeah, more than I get in investor.
It makes for a very good annuity. Yeah.
But you could, there's some changes that we could make that would allow that to become, significantly profitable for somebody to do.
Yeah.
And so,
Kathleen, I sit and I agree with you in a lot of respects. And that the question I really have is that as we get through this, what is the town's outlay that we have to make in order to make this? I mean, we put that as part of our 10-year plan that we were going to take a look at this and say, can we do it? Is there a possibility of it? Because it's important to the town to consider it. And if we can, we should.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
And so, how do you begin? And you begin by saying, with our, we've kind of done it already. What the hell can we do to make this happen? And we're kind of sitting there all twisting our hands going, I don't know how to make it happen. I don't know how to make this happen. I do not.
Well, are we sitting here thinking of trying to go through it with Steve Whitman? Are we?
that's our recommendation. That's
Okay.
in my recommendation.
And
is that something
that's
that
that's the whole point of this.
Is that something we should consider tonight?
Well, yeah, we voted at the last
We-
meeting.
at the last meeting to do this.
Apply for this grant and to
Okay.
go through this process and contingent on the consultant that we choose tonight.
So I think we can all agree we have no idea how or where this might end up, but at least we would like to take some steps forward. So I would recommend that we go with your recommendation and apply for a grant and go forward with Steve Whitman.
And I will add that, Kathleen, Betsy and I really did look for someone that was going to be as familiar as possible with.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all, Scott. I don't, and I really
But
appreciate you guys doing this
But
because it's,
there's also value in having someone that is more objective, who's coming at it from the outside and can see things that we can't see for the.
And I know I get myself emotional. I mean, that's no question about it. I try really hard to calm myself down before I come here. And it's just like, and then I just,
I love people that get emotional.
But the thing is, in my business, we spent a whole bunch of money for an outside consultant, and a lot of things he told us, he kind of said, but he said one thing, if you want things to change, you have to change things.
oh, I understand that. And
And it was like, that was worth
I never
all,
thought of that.
that was worth all the money we paid him because.
that's the only time anything works. That's why things don't work in government, because nobody's willing to change
And no
things.
one's willing to change, or no one's willing to consider change. So if we are not willing to consider something that's different than what we already know, how the heck are we going to get to some different place? And
I would just feel better if I knew where the land was going to be.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's how I feel about it. And I also feel that
it's
we
a,
need,
it's a tripping point.
and when you have to put a septic system in a well, and then it's not affordable anymore. And that's not the right
a
word to
tripping
use, I'm
point.
sorry.
The whole economy of it is a tripping point. And so the question is, how do you get by that? And I don't know how you get by that. Maybe we can't get by it.
And that's why I was thinking, instead of thinking about here in Jackson, doing something or having talked to the other towns in the valley, since we are a valley community. We have our schools, our hospitals, our nursing homes and things like that. We do have housing there, but they need to expand all that. But they have flat ground, okay? They have land out there we don't have septic systems. I mean, we don't have the land, the soil and everything else we have here in Jackson because of the slopes and everything else, and we have 2-acre lots here in Jackson to accommodate the soil and everything else. And to me, it just seems like maybe we have to think outside the box and coordinate ourselves with the other towns and see where we could have it done.
That may be
And we don't actually have 2-acre lots anymore. We did, but we changed that a batch of years ago, so we're working with the minimum soils requirements.
Here's my thought. I wholeheartedly agree with you that it's much more likely that things like this will work in Conway, East Conway, whatever. But as you said, we're part of a community.
Large
the valley.
community, yes.
And I think that obligates us to at least try and do our own part. And not just throw it off on these other towns. I think
I wasn't
it's-
throwing it off on the other towns. I was just thinking about the septic system and the wells, and that cost a lot of money to have it put in.
Well, but again, I think our ulterior purpose is to preserve the community in Jackson. And if we don't have a cross-section of ages, we don't have a community.
I agree with you.
Period. And maybe, as a taxpayer and a landowner and a citizen of the town, I would be willing to accept a significantly higher tax rate if that's what it took to preserve the community in town. I value the community as much as I do the view.
Oh,
in
I
this
do
town.
too.
And, if it came to, it would take a lot, I'm sure, to get the town as a whole behind this, but, if it took the town raising $500,000 a year, or $250,000 a year to purchase property to then make sure that property allowed the kind of diversity of community that we're looking for, to me, that would be worth it.
So Joe Smith's property up there comes on the market, and is the town going to go and buy that property to make it into affordable housing?
If that's what it took, I would be in
Maybe.
favor of it.
Maybe.
Yeah,
You're trying to presuppose all the opportunities that are there. But is that a possibility? Yeah, that's a possibility.
Okay.
I
I'm
would
just
say-
asking. I
If
just
we
threw it out there.
decided, that's how it was going to happen, and we did
And then,
it's
okay,
a 10-year plan, or whatever.
and then the legal matter is, does the town become renters? We're renting property out now?
She would be.
Or you can sell a deed restriction so that it remains in that situation.
We're presupposing all the potential opportunities, and we're I think a planner coming in knows those things, kind of like he knows the back of his hand, kind of thing,
You're hoping.
or she. And here we are, we're kind of throwing them out, like, well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe that, maybe that, and I think the purpose of doing this is to have somebody come through and say, look, in order for this to happen, you're going to have to do these following things, and you need to make a choice about whether you want to do them as a town or not. And is there enough interest in doing them, or are you going to just say, well, nice try?
I know there's a lot of young people because I was at the last school board meeting and there was at least 10 young people that have come into town recently. And that's probably what's filling up the 9 new kids at school, that really want a preschool here. Now, I know preschool's set up all over the country right now, and because it's really important. And it's important for young people to have, and the kids to have a preschool here in town. That's an incentive for people to want to come here and live. That's one way of incenting people to come here and live, other than the beauty and everything else that goes along with it. But they like our community. As far as older people go and assisted living, or you don't want to use that word at all because that's not nice. Because I'm getting there. And anyway, Joe and I are facing the same situation. We have a horrible road driveway and everything else, and our bedroom's on eventually it's the 3rd floor. But anyway, that's not conducive for us if something happens. And I don't want to leave Jackson, so there you go. But I can't afford to buy property in Jackson and put a house up on 1 floor. And there you go again. I mean, and land is very valuable here in Jackson.
And so there are some big old structures in town that might be available to, it might be that you could work through something or other where there could be 2 or 3 apartments in some old structure or something. We can't see it right now. But maybe as the whole thing gets talked about.
Oh, I know where would be a great ideal place for senior citizens up in Black Mountain Meadows. I mean, that's a great, condominiums up there. There's a bedroom on the 1st floor, and it's ideal.
It's the only condos that have a bedroom on the
Yeah,
first
and they're
floor.
$400,000. I mean.
Well, there may be some other things that we're not aware of that could work, and I'm hoping that you guys will say, yes, let's go ahead and get the application out.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that, Betsy. I don't have a problem with that in the least. I'm just throwing out some ideas, and, have we thought about this, have we thought about that, and where are you going to put this? I mean, that's what I asked about the last time.
Damned if I know.
And same thing goes with, we need septic systems and wells. I mean, that costs a lot of money. And I'm all for having a trust fund set up to try and do something about this. Because it is very vital to have young people and old people still living here.
I
I don't have a problem with
appreciate
that.
the discussion. The question is, are we going to move forward? What is the actual cost on this for the town to pay out in order for
I
this
think
to
it's
happen? I understand we're going to get grants and all that sort of thing. What is the
It's
actual
a
outlay?
percentage.
Yeah.
Well, 2,500 is what Betsy and I are.
Is the actual...
That's contingent on getting the MTAG grant and then getting a secondary.
And we can't even begin to consider how much it's going to cost us unless we put this thing in, right?
What do you mean?
To get the grant, yes.
We have to make the application.
Right, we have
Right.
a quote from Steve Whitman.
Right, and we have...
17,000.
And we have no obligation until we
Until we have.
pass through all the various gauntlets.
And for this particular grant program, we won't be spending more than whatever amount we agree to, which I'm assuming will be $2,500 that the town would pay. There's not a way where halfway through it, we're going to have to pay more or something or other. This is a fixed, it's going to be spent from town meeting in March through December of next year. That's the whole process of how it's going to run. So it's going to be pretty darn quick. It's a finite thing. It's not going to end up costing us more later unless the town somehow votes for something or other to change. The town votes for
Okay. But
putting
just
money into
keeping it
something.
limited to what we're trying to consider for this evening.
Right.
Is to put the application in, basically.
Yeah, all we're
Not
voting
necessarily-
on is getting the application.
Exactly.
So I guess if I could hear a motion that we
I'll
should...
make the motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
That we put the, application in, that we're not contractually obligated for anything at this point, but see where we go from there.
And the question on the application is that somebody with fiduciary responsibility, is that a select person?
We're asking that.
And we're checking that with
now.
you, okay.
Yep.
All right.
So I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing it.
Okay.
And Sarah, are you abstaining also?
No, I said aye.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of disturbances, site disturbance.
Okay, so I've heard about this from Julie Atwell and Julie Hoyt and Kevin Bennett, and and you had some input on it also? Do you want to start off?
I don't know.
No, okay. Okay.
I don't know what site
What is
is talking about.
So what I've heard is that if you check out our subdivision regulations, the way we decided to word the whole site disturbance issue was figuring that people, we don't want erosion to happen, and we say right in there that people must prevent erosion. The word must is in there. But as to whether they can then have specific, if they have to have an engineer come in and say you need to have a pond here, or you need to create a holding
Barrier or whatever.
Yeah. What we as a planning board decided was that we didn't want to require people to do a particular thing, except that they were required to not have runoff that couldn't be somewhat controlled, just to prevent the erosion. And
Who would
so-
monitor that, though? as part
well,
of the
it's monitored
process?
by the building inspector. The difficulty is that, for example, apparently somebody recently came in and clear cut 6 acres without regard to any sort of water retention. And in my view, we have penalties in here that it's an enforcement issue, I think. If you feel that somebody is permitting erosion to happen and they haven't paid any attention to preventing it, then we have fees.
Is this the property that you referenced up on, off of Tin Mine?
Well,
Oh, I thought you referenced the property up there 2 or 3 meetings ago that somebody just came in there, clear cut, and didn't do anything else. Oh, okay.
wasn't me.
Well, let me pass out what I got from Julie, and certainly we're not going to make a decision tonight, but thanks. I should have just passed them all out at once. So you can see where we say water courses shall be designed.
Oh, that's on the other
basically.
side. I know what you mean. I know where that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jay Henry was the one that was talking about it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was up there by the Burex house. Is that where the 6 acres was that was clear cut?
I didn't ask where it was.
But it's just a mess. I went
I
up there
think
and
that's
looked
what
at it.
yes. Isn't that where it is?
You go up Tin Mine, you take a left on one of the roads,
Right.
and then it's up on the right. It goes up a hill, a driveway up a hill, and you drive up there and walk up there.
Little Mountain?
No, apparently it's all the
A
way up to
little
the
higher.
top, near the Burex.
Okay.
Oh, that's where there's houses in outer space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like nowhere.
And there's no building there.
No, because
there was a building there, Bob said he hoped he had an anchor there.
yeah.
Well, so we say in here, such and such shall happen, and then we say design guidelines may be used, and that was simply because we didn't want to say you have to do it X way. Now they want us, as I understand it, Dick Bennett wants us to say this must be this way. But if you check page 14, I think it is, my vision is bad. Yeah, page 14, section 12 of our subdivision ordinance, the green cover. So it spells out penalties and fines. So it goes along with what is permitted in the RSAs. I don't know if we feel that the fine isn't enough in the RSAs, if we can increase it or something or other, but I can't see why we change our ordinance
Is that
to
the one from the
require-
215?
It's in this one, yes, page
Okay.
14 in the green one.
Is Dick asking that someone that's doing some work submit a plan and then follow that plan? Or is he asking that we specify exactly how it should be done
Well,
ourselves?
it seems to me that that's probably the one change that we could make, is to require a plan to be brought in about it, and I don't think we do that.
That would be a good idea.
Just, it doesn't seem that there's anything here that suggests that one has to be, one has to propose plan and then have it approved,
Right.
unless that's already built in or baked in somehow.
But the
Well,
developer,
With subdivision, this is all for doing a subdivision, but if somebody has his own lot, then subdivision regulations, I would think, don't apply to it.
Right.
But-
But in the zoning ordinance.
Right.
And so what you pulled out from the zoning ordinance is that,
But that's what we say, we don't say that we need a plan, we just put
Right.
the onus on the property
That
owner
has
to
to
do
be
what
done.
they're doing.
But were they just doing it for logging to it, what makes the difference?
So, sir, you said that this, you think that this involves a development? It seems to me that it,
no,
that's...
this, the top sheet is from the zoning ordinance, so that's everything,
Okay.
but.
It
that's
is in the-
first in.
It is in the zoning ordinance. So, on page 5 of the orange zoning ordinance, it talks about, it's exactly that quote, 4.1.6.
Yeah.
When the
4.1.6.
subdivision that's where the penalties are listed.
Yeah, and I should, I think that's my mistake, because we also have,
Enforcement penalties on page 28 of the zoning.
yeah.
So, are we suggesting that it won't be, the whole process is only associated with subdivisions?
Well, that was my mistake. This is right from the zoning ordinance. I had thought they were talking about subdivision as the problem, but it is definitely zoning ordinance. And if you see the second page here is what they've been passing out as the design guidelines for 4.1.6 site disturbance of the zoning ordinance. But the difficulty, I guess, is that obviously the guy who clear-cut 6 acres wasn't paying any attention, wasn't aware of it, didn't ask anybody any questions, maybe. I don't know. But it seems to me that it's an enforcement issue.
How does clearing your lot have anything to do with site disturbance when you're not really affecting the soil and you're not really moving?
Well,
We're affecting the water flow across the lot.
I understand, but if someone is not particularly sophisticated, they just simply look, I have a piece of property, it has timber on it, it's my right to take that timber down. I'm not disturbing the soil, I'm not doing anything that suggests that I'm disturbing the site, I'm simply taking and harvesting what's available. How does that affect erosion? And
But it could. I mean, it very
Well,
well.
it
well, it could, but maybe not.
Well,
I mean, who are you to say it does? It doesn't.
Well, I think you
And
you
does
gotta look
somebody
at...
always have to get an engineer if they're going to get their chain somehow?
No, but I think that if
And that's what
something
you're
goes wrong,
suggesting.
I think if something goes wrong, you're responsible for it, and the responsible person would get somebody up there to say, what are the consequences
Well,
if I clear this up?
And this is part of what we ran into
I mean,
when we
I'm
went
just-
through all this.
I'm playing devil's advocate
Well, I
here,
understand.
Well, and this is what we went through when we were crafting this originally, was where do we draw the line? If you're going to cut one tree, then you shouldn't have to, submit a plan because you're going to be changing. I mean, even cutting one tree is going to affect the water
but
flow.
depends on the damn tree.
I mean, to some degree, it's
Or
going
if
to
it's
affect the
dead.
water flow because that tree is no longer taking up that water. But if you cut 1,000 trees, then you very well may make a significant change in how the water flows across your land and where it goes once it goes beyond your land. But, where do you draw the line? And of course, the line would vary according to the slope of the land, according to the soil, and so, and site disturbance isn't limited to disturbance of the soil, it's disturbance of the site in general. But that's why we were, I think that's why we said, okay, instead of trying to legislate how it's done, we're simply going to say, this is the result.
And I guess reading this, I don't read, and I apologize for being limited in my understanding, because I am limited in my understanding. But to me, site disturbance, as I read it here, doesn't really suggest much about anybody cutting a tree down.
Well, the very first one, general considerations. Existing natural and topographic features, including vegetative cover and runoff flow paths and types, should be preserved to the greatest extent possible. So, if you take that very literally, then cutting down one tree is significant. But we really wanted it to be up to the owner to figure ways to make it work. And the difficulty is if owners aren't savvy about it, aren't tuned into what the requirements are, then how do they know?
And I agree with Bill. I mean, I think most, or many people, if not most people, wouldn't think that cutting trees is going to do anything.
Right, because if you do a clear cut,
And so-
what happens is that you also then get new growth that occurs, and the new growth is going to, after so many years,
There's a push-pull kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's, and the thing is, once the trees are down, they're down. You can't
Right.
put them back up.
and
You can fill in a ditch or dig it.
and then there's the flip
Like dogs.
argument from some folks that says, we hug our trees too much, and if you don't take them down, you do not harvest them, you not monitor how your property is kept. All you do is set up an opportunity for wildfires, and you lose the opportunity to benefit from the value of the trees that are there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with cutting down trees. It's the erosion that's the problem.
Now, I'm just glancing through this. I'm not seeing any "you shall do it this way" or "submit this."
Yeah, there's just nothing.
It's really just more fleshed out. Here's some things that you ought to be aware of, that you should consider, that you really, certain practices that you really should follow.
Stabilize the
It's
area.
sort of like, don't let this happen, as opposed to telling you how to not let it happen, is the way I interpret it.
But it does provide more information, especially maybe to someone that, the person who doesn't realize that cutting trees may have an impact probably isn't going to think to read through our zoning to see whether cutting trees doesn't have an impact
Yeah.
like they assume. So
Probably.
some things are just going to happen.
So, I know we're not trying to make any decisions tonight, but how do we go about that to raise awareness sufficiently for anyone who's property owner who might be considering something like that?
Are these guidelines that they're being suggested by the Board of Selectmen? Is
Well,
that?
these,
I think we helped get the guidelines in place, maybe with,
Well, these are
these are existing
the
guidelines.
actual ones. These are what's available.
Yes,
Okay.
this is what's handed out
I
when
thought
people
this was
asked
something
about
new
it.
that they were wanting us to.
And I think maybe Bert Phillips helped us write them years ago.
All right, yeah. So what is it that the Board of Selectmen want us to do?
What I hear, I guess Dick Bennett is upset by the fact that people aren't paying attention, people are going ahead and clear cutting or whatever. And so really it's important for us to sort of open the topic and think about it, but I think hearing Dick's comments next time may be helpful. But I don't see why simply enforcing the existing regulation, the shall be designed, and setting a fine on it of, whatever seems appropriate, and certainly providing guidance through the e-news or something like that, making people
That's a good
aware
idea,
that there's this requirement.
A fine and also making them comply with it. You can't just fine, hey, I paid the fine, tough luck.
Yeah.
You know, they gotta comply, so I don't know what that says.
And if
in the
they've
article.
already cut down all the trees, then okay, they need to backstep and set up some sort of water flow retention.
But you see, even in these minimum construction sites along roads where you get stacks of hay with stakes in them, and I remember up on Route 16 near Wildcat, there were big orange or green foam things to stop flow. But even though they're just doing minimal stuff, so you know, I think if people aren't aware of it, we should somehow try to make them aware of it. And how do you do that? Maybe you put something in the paper.
Yeah, but if they don't catch it the first
I
time.
think enforcement would make people aware of it.
Yeah.
Once it's enforced, then we will very quickly get around.
Something gets into e-news that,
And-
not to
and
mention a
who
person's
is-
name,
who
but
What is the enforcement agency for something like this? Is it the planning board?
it's the selectmen.
Is this like, are this like folks?
Yeah, it's
So they should
written-
be doing their job.
Well, they would send out the police, I think, wouldn't they?
Well,
To enforce a citation or something?
I mean, did nobody know that all this acres
Someone's
is,
just logging, I
is
think there's a difference.
coming down?
Right, but even logging, you should not be having erosion be a result of the logging. You have to figure a way to do it so that it's appropriately handled, and there's not going to be.
Well, you have
And you may or may not know what that is beforehand. However, if someone says, look, if you're logging, for example, you may say, look, okay, at a minimum, the
They have to come in for a
expectation
permit, would they,
is
for
that you're
logging?
going
I
to,
think so. Yeah.
if you do a clear cut, you're going to be responsible for replanting trees, for example, as a means of long-term maintaining the same level of erosion from that site.
when you're logging, I don't know who was in charge. It used to be Bob Boyd, but he retired. He does check where you're logging.
Well, you have to file an intent to cut, right? Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. So that
They put that
immediately.
tax on for World War II, but we're still paying it. That's why.
Well, with the intent to
tax
cut, you
was-
alert people to the fact that you're going to be
What a
doing it.
great idea.
You still have to set aside the Queen's trees for the
Or the king.
King
It
Street,
depends
Who's in power?
Tall, straight pines.
So we don't need to
So we can cut
make a
down
decision. I think
for
it's
math,
important
but-
probably for Dick to weigh in. But it's something for us to be savvy about and be thinking about for next time maybe.
All right, we can put it, then I would suggest that we defer a remainder of the discussion until Dick has an opportunity to weigh in.
Okay,
Because
good idea.
nothing's going to change between now and then.
Good idea.
Okay, on the agenda still, we have consider changes needed to subdivision and boundary line adjustment fee schedules. Betsy, can you help on that one?
Yeah, this is a pretty darn complicated thing where,
Oh, great.
Just
when I thought we were winding up.
well,
I
and-
move that we accept it. As
As proposed.
it's something that Julie Hoyt and I, when the planning board decided on its finals, when we did the approvals for our subdivision regulations, we said that the selectmen will determine the fees, the fee schedule. But I guess what actually happened was that they pretty much took the fee schedule we had before and just continued it. And so Julie and I don't really understand some of the things. We've been charging $40 for recording fees at the Registry of Deeds, but they have it, the actual fees are $28 a page. And so our $40 is too much in some instances and not enough in others. And we're not charging for, there are some towns that charge $80 for a newspaper notice. We charge $24. So I'm not really sure what to do about this.
Again, I don't believe the planning board sets fee schedules. I think that's something the select folks do. And I think what we probably need to do is ask for our town administrators that do work with it on a regular basis to offer out, to me, it would seem that the right way to do that is to have maybe a set fee for the effort that's required to do that helps pay for the salaries for the folks who actually are doing it, and then charge whomever's doing it actual cost.
Yeah, good.
And say, here's what it is. This is whatever that is. We'll send you here's what you have to do that. If it's $18 a page, or 28, or 30, whatever the going rate is, and say it's going to be what it costs plus a administrative fee of X that we agree to help offset the actual effort that's being done by the
That's
administrative
great.
staff.
Because some towns charge a whole lot. If you want to do a major subdivision or a minor subdivision, you're paying a whole lot. $200 is what we're requiring. And there are some towns that charge even more. I don't think we want to put impediments in people's ways by charging unnecessarily.
No.
Actual cost with a minimum?
Yeah, I mean, it may be that those towns that say $200, and maybe even us, suggest that, this is going to take 5 hours of time at $40 an hour, and that's what we assume it's going to take on average. It's kind of like going into the Volvo dealer and they say, if you want to change this thing, we're going to charge you $300 for that no matter what. And you go, why? It only took you 15 minutes. It's like, well, on average, it takes us 5 hours to do that. Yours was quick, so we're going to charge you $300 anyway. Okay. Okay.
Hospital works.
But it all works out, and generally it works out. And so, how you set the fees should be based on some sort of realistic understanding of the amount of time it takes to process something. And if someone's going to work at something, if Kathleen has to work 6 hours on it, and her time's valuable.
Don't tell my husband that.
Her time's valuable. And so, you need to make sure that we're charging reasonably, but also appropriately.
Great. That makes so much sense to me. I'm glad. That seems to be a consensus then. Great.
And so I think the right thing to do is for town staff to come up and say, this is what we think it is, and then go to the select folks and get them to approve the schedule.
Great.
That makes sense.
I know I've listened to them in there, and somebody will come up to have something done. Julie will say, well, so much per page, but if I can send it to you email and you print it out yourself, it doesn't cost you anything, or whatever it is, and they're all for that. So I know that they try really hard to make it cost efficient to the people that are coming up to the
It'd be
window
different
there.
if we were a town where we felt we don't want anybody else here. We're going to charge $800 for an application, but we're wanting
Oh yeah.
good development. We want economic, improvements, I think.
Well, we're not a profit center. We should.
I did have a lady come up to, I don't know if I said this or not, to me and Trish Hamm when we were talking at the post office there, and this couple came up to us and they wanted to know how to get someplace. But anyway, they were just marveling how great a town we had. They were just so, you don't see anything like this anymore. She said it's so relaxing and so peaceful and so nice to see that there's still a town like this someplace. And I thought that was really a nice compliment. I didn't say the correct words, but that's the gist of what she said. And I was, yep.
Speaking of peaceful, did they talk about helicopters at the select meeting before I got there? That's the whole reason I came, was I saw they were doing helicopter
They did.
tours.
Yes. Did you hear Chris Perley address that?
No, I came in late.
Oh, it was some company out of Brooklyn or something in New York, and they were going to call or find out whether we accepted them before they made the, took the money from somebody to take the tour up here.
But there is apparently an advertisement in some magazine or newspaper
Yes.
that says
Jackson.
helicopter tours available in Jackson or something like that.
I'm surprised that there isn't something like that already through the valley. I mean, you see
They said it was like this company did like extreme, extreme, whatever they call that.
Yeah.
Right, but it just sightseeing helicopter tours. You see those in a lot of places.
They used to do that in North Conway. There was
Right, well, we have-
Lord, was it Eddie Lord that had the helicopters and was doing that?
And then we had the Red Baron plane too, that
Yeah.
took people up to a biplane.
Yeah, yeah.
We used to be able to take a helicopter to the top of Mount Washington, thanks to Al Rish.
Oh yeah.
And ski down from there. I did that, I did it a couple of seasons.
Was it a couple?
Yeah. That was
I just
cool.
couldn't imagine bringing people over the head wall without then getting experience of what it's really like by going up it.
Well,
No,
they,
you can go down. You can go up as far as you want to go
Go
down.
down.
they dropped us at the top, and my wife didn't want to ski down on the head wall. And they literally took the helicopter right over the head wall. And, came over from the right gully, and my God, look at that below.
Can you imagine insurance today?
Yeah.
I've got one
Cost prohibitive.
other business item,
Oh.
and that is this publication that we're considering getting copies of. Can you explain
Oh,
what that
yes.
is? Yeah.
So there is a thing called the Planning Board Handbook that I guess is a general guide to making planning boards work well. They're
Costs
$7
costs
each.
$7 for each copy. It's
Oh.
available electronically, but it's also available in hard copy at $7.
Is this a New Hampshire publication?
Yes.
Yes. Is this do we wish to have a copy? If you do, I'm
Yeah.
willing to pay the $7 to have
How-
each of us have one.
How often do they publish this?
I don't know.
That's
I want
That's
a hard
39
copy that I
I
can
don't
make
want.
notes on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
It's only going to cost the planning board $49 or something or other for, well, $42, I guess, since we're not
Be another
full.
magazine.
$7. Yes, we'll get $7.
They're $7 each.
Is it a book or a magazine?
It's a
It's a book. It's a
But
booklet.
it's not a monthly publication.
No.
Dick's going to need one too, so,
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
So $49.
yeah.
all right. So we'll have Julie just order out 7
Is
copies.
there anybody who would prefer to just have it electronically?
I'd prefer to have it electronically, but I think I can take my copy and make it available for a reference copy.
Okay, great.
I'd like a hard copy or whatever it
I'd like
is.
a
Me
hard
too.
copy.
Yeah.
I need a hard
What
copy. I
about
can make
email
notes
as
on.
it is? I miss it. I miss it.
And the only other thing I had was that note I sent out about the municipal law lectures. I find it outrageous that they would charge $100 for people to go to this 2-hour meeting or something or other. But if there's somebody who wants to go, the planning board did vote years ago that if somebody's willing to give up a Saturday or something or other and go be trained, that we would cover the cost.
So part of the material is also stuff that's already been covered in other, and it's like,
Like, why would they charge $100 for it? It's crazy.
because they can get it.
Because they can.
What else do you get? A gourmet lunch or something?
I don't know.
A peanut butter.
Better be more than that. Expensive lunch.
Platinum.
You get continental breakfast and lunch.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
So you get a muffin and a candidate.
Okay.
I move that we adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.